1, the dragon's attack. In a kingdom far away, the people lived in peace and harmony under the rule of their beloved king. The sun shone bright, the birds chirped melodiously, and the people went about their daily business with a smile on their faces. However, their peaceful existence was soon to be shattered. One day, a monstrous dragon appeared on the horizon, breathing fire and destroying everything in its path. Villages burned to the ground, fields were torched, and people were taken captive. The dragon was merciless, and the people were powerless to stop it. The king called upon the bravest knights in the land to defeat the dragon and save the kingdom, but one by one, they failed. Their swords could not pierce the dragon's scaly hide, and their shields could not protect them from the dragon's fiery breath. The people of the kingdom began to lose hope, and the dragon continued its reign of terror. That is until a young princess named Isabella decided to take matters into her own hands. Isabella had always been a brave and adventurous soul, and she knew that if anyone could defeat the dragon, it was her. She donned her suit of armor, picked up her sword and shield, and set out on a quest to save her kingdom. As she rode out of the castle gates, the people cheered her on, hoping and praying for her success. The journey was long and treacherous, but Isabella pressed on, determined to do whatever it took to defeat the dragon and save her people. Finally, after many days of traveling, Isabella caught sight of the dragon's lair in the distance. She took a deep breath, tightened her grip on her sword, and prepared to face her greatest challenge yet. Chapter 2, The Call to Adventure. Princess Isabella rode towards the dragon's lair with a determined look on her face. The journey had been long and difficult, but she refused to give up. As she approached the lair, she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, a voice called out to her from the shadows. "Who goes there?" it said. Isabella turned to see an old man with a long white beard and piercing blue eyes. "I am Princess Isabella," she replied. "I am here to defeat the dragon and save my kingdom." The old man stepped forward, revealing himself to be a wise wizard. "Princess Isabella, I have been expecting you," he said. "I have been watching your journey, and I believe that you are the one who can defeat the dragon. But you will need my help." The wizard led Isabella to a small hut hidden in the woods. Inside, he showed her a map of the dragon's lair and gave her a magical amulet that would protect her from the dragon's fire. He also gave her a bag of enchanted dust that would blind the dragon temporarily, giving her an advantage in battle. "Remember," the wizard said, "the dragon is not just a monster to be slain. It is a creature of immense power and intelligence. You will need to use all your wits and strength to defeat it." Isabella thanked the wizard and set out towards the dragon's lair, feeling a renewed sense of confidence. She knew that the journey ahead would be dangerous, but she was ready for whatever lay ahead. The fate of her kingdom depended on it. Chapter 3, Meeting the Wise Wizard. After Princess Isabella defeated the dragon and saved her kingdom, she knew that she still had much to learn. She set out on a journey to find a wise wizard who could teach her the ways of magic. She traveled for days through forests and over mountains until she reached a small village at the edge of the kingdom. There she found a wise old man who was known throughout the land as a master of magic. The old man welcomed Isabella into his humble home, and they sat together by the fire. "What brings you to me, my dear?" he asked. "I wish to learn the ways of magic," Isabella replied. "I want to be able to use my powers to help my people and protect my kingdom." The old man smiled kindly at her. "Magic is not something that can be learned quickly or easily," he said. "It takes years of study and practice to master. But I am willing to teach you if you are willing to put in the work." Isabella nodded eagerly, and the old man began to teach her the secrets of magic. He showed her how to harness the power of the elements and how to cast spells that could heal the sick and protect the weak. As the months passed, Isabella worked tirelessly to master the art of magic. She studied ancient tomes and practiced her spells until she could cast them with ease. And all the while, the wise old man watched over her, guiding her every step of the way. Finally, after many long months, Isabella felt that she was ready. She thanked the old man for his guidance and set out on a new adventure, eager to use her newfound powers to help those in need. As she left the village, the old man called out after her. "Remember, Princess Isabella," he said. "Magic is not just about power. It is about using that power wisely and with compassion." Isabella smiled, feeling a newfound sense of confidence and purpose. She knew that with her magic and her courage, she could overcome any challenge that lay ahead. Chapter 4: Into the Dragon's Lair. Princess Isabella knew that her kingdom was still in danger. Even though she had defeated the dragon, there were other threats lurking in the shadows. So she set out on a new quest to find the source of these dangers and put an end to them once and for all. She traveled deep into the heart of the mountains, following a trail that led to the lair of a powerful sorcerer. The sorcerer was rumored to have dark powers that could bring about the end of the world, and Isabella knew that she had to stop him. As she approached the sorcerer's lair, Isabella could feel the power of his magic growing stronger. She drew her sword and prepared for battle, knowing that the sorcerer would not give up his dark powers without a fight. The entrance to the lair was guarded by fierce creatures, but Isabella fought her way past them with her sword and her wits. She knew that the sorcerer's power was growing stronger with every passing moment, and she had to reach him before it was too late. Finally, she reached the heart of the sorcerer's lair, a dark chamber filled with the eerie light of magical energy. The sorcerer himself was waiting for her, his eyes glowing with a malevolent energy. "You are too late, princess," he sneered. "My powers are too strong for you to stop." Isabella stood tall and drew on all of her training, calling forth the elements to aid her. She cast spell after spell, each one more powerful than the last, until she had the sorcerer backed into a corner. With one final burst of energy, Isabella vanquished the sorcerer's dark powers, sending him fleeing from his lair. She emerged victorious, her sword raised high in triumph. As she made her way back to her kingdom, Isabella knew that her quest was not yet over. But she also knew that with her courage and her magic, she could face any challenge that lay ahead. Chapter 5: The Battle Begins. Princess Isabella had returned to her kingdom, but she knew that the dangers were far from over. The sorcerer may have been defeated, but there were still other threats to her people. One day, a messenger arrived at the castle with news of a massive army marching towards the kingdom's borders. The enemy was led by a powerful warlord who sought to conquer and rule over all the lands. Isabella knew that this was the moment she had been training for her entire life. She called upon her bravest knights and warriors, and together they rode out to meet the enemy on the battlefield. The two armies clashed with a thunderous roar, and the ground shook with the force of their collision. Isabella and her knights fought with all their might, wielding their swords and spears with deadly accuracy. For hours, the battle raged on, with neither side gaining the upper hand. Isabella fought tirelessly, leading her troops into the fray with a fierce determination that inspired them all. Finally, as the sun began to set, Isabella saw her opening. She rallied her troops for one final push, and they charged forward with renewed energy. With a mighty blow from her sword, Isabella struck down the warlord and his forces crumbled. The enemy army fled in disarray, their dreams of conquest shattered. Isabella emerged from the battlefield victorious, her sword dripping with the blood of her enemies. Her knights and warriors cheered her name, and the people of her kingdom hailed her as their savior. But even in her moment of triumph, Isabella knew that there would always be new challenges to face. She vowed to remain vigilant, ready to defend her people and her kingdom against any threat that may arise. The battle may have ended, but the war for the future of her kingdom had just begun. Chapter 6: Victory and Celebration. With the enemy defeated and her kingdom safe once again, Princess Isabella led her army back to the castle, where they were greeted by the cheers of the people. The citizens of the kingdom poured out into the streets, celebrating their victory and honoring the brave warriors who had fought to protect them. Isabella rode at the head of the procession, her sword held high in triumph. As she passed through the streets, the people hailed her as a hero, showering her with flowers and gifts. When they arrived at the castle, Isabella was greeted by a lavish feast in her honor. The tables were piled high with the finest foods and drinks, and musicians played joyful tunes in the background. As Isabella and her knights sat down to feast, she couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude and humility. She knew that she couldn't have achieved this victory alone, and she was grateful to her knights and warriors for their bravery and sacrifice. As the night wore on, the celebration continued, with dancing and singing and storytelling long into the night. Isabella felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that her kingdom was safe and that her people were happy. In the days and weeks that followed, Isabella continued to work tirelessly to improve her kingdom. She built new schools and hospitals, provided aid to those in need, and worked to establish peaceful relations with neighboring kingdoms. And though there were still challenges and struggles ahead, Isabella knew that she had the support of her people and the strength of her own character to face whatever came her way. For she was a true leader, a warrior princess, and a champion of justice and freedom for all. Chapter 7: The Future of the Kingdom. Princess Isabella had always been a forward-thinking leader, and she knew that the future of her kingdom depended on continued growth and progress. She had already made great strides in improving the lives of her people, but she knew that there was still much work to be done. One day, as Isabella was walking through the gardens of the castle, she heard a commotion in the distance. She followed the sound and found a group of young children playing together, their laughter echoing through the air. Isabella watched them for a moment, a smile on her face. Then she approached them and asked, "What are you playing?" "We're playing Knights and Dragons, Your Highness," one of the children replied. "Ah, I see," Isabella said, nodding. "And who is the dragon?" "I am," another child cried, waving his arms and pretending to breathe fire. Isabella laughed. "Well, then, I suppose I must be the knight who defeats the dragon," she said, drawing her sword. The children cheered and laughed, and Isabella spent the rest of the afternoon playing with them, her heart filled with joy. As she walked back to the castle that evening, Isabella realized that the future of her kingdom lay in the hands of these children. They were the ones who would carry on her legacy, who would build on the progress she had made and take the kingdom to even greater heights. With this in mind, Isabella made a vow to invest in the education and well-being of the children of her kingdom. She established new schools and programs to help them grow and learn, and she worked tirelessly to create a brighter future for them. Years later, when Isabella had passed on the mantle of leadership to a new generation, she looked back on her reign with pride and satisfaction. She knew that she had done everything in her power to ensure that the future of her kingdom was bright and full of promise. And she knew that her legacy would live on, carried forward by the children she had loved and nurtured with all her heart.